of course, on the newspaper, talking to Dr. Muitalel Nahashon. Thank you so much, sir, for your time this morning.
Okay.
Good to have you. And, of course, Ben Kinuthia, who's a lawyer and equally our able analyst, as always, very able to address some of the issues in terms of matters, politics, and most importantly, also on life coaching aspect. And, of course, we always get a great insights from him as to how we can deal with issues to do with life, professionalism, and all that. So let's get to expound much more on what is right here as to the topics that I have touched on, and basically also some of the stories that are making news right here. Good morning and welcome aboard, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. Ayub is not here today. He says hi.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't able to be here. So he equally says hi to you, the viewer. Remember, it's important you interact with us. #NewDayKE, SMS line 40920. And let's get to hear what you have to say about this, because these are issues that affect you. And before we even come to the topics of discussion, I think this is a story that came out, or we learned of yesterday. And it has not rubbed well, of course, with the Kenyans as to how we are expecting, or maybe this is ongoing already, a scandal of members of parliament on a gravy train to US and West amidst want, as they would say, a lot of benchmarking and them attending conferences on behalf of course, the people of Kenya. But in real sense, we barely get anything good out of these conferences. And some of the leaders also castigating this or pointing fingers at this, saying that maybe it wasn't necessary. Right Honorable Raila Odinga himself says or faults the members of parliament, the MCA, is a big number to US trip and terms it as waste of revenue. So the country has sent the largest, we would say, delegation in the world to the conference at a time the president proposed cuts on foreign travels. We're talking about 85 members, of course, of representation. And the question would be whether this is necessary and what exactly we're going to get out of this particular conference. Remember the benchmarking of them going to World Cup, to watch World Cup, and they said they wanted to pick some of the key things that we need to have so that they can strengthen the sports fraternity or maybe the football fraternity in the country. Well, we've not been able to see anything out of it. So some of these conferences, the leaders attend, and they barely come home with anything. Okay, well, apart from the big shopping bags and, goodies that they brought to their family members. So here we are with this story in the newspaper. While we castigate it, we still proceed to send these members of parliament or these legislatures abroad.
But for the members of the parliament, we don't know their work plan.
Yes.
Maybe it is there in the work plan. So because we have the party leaders and the parliament under the able leadership of the speaker, they should check that work plan to see if it is okay. Because maybe according to the law they have made, they are the lawmakers. And so we need a watchdog there. And the person who should take care of our interests there is now the party leaders. And there must be somebody to crack the whip there. Because if you allow somebody to do a work plan, that one becomes, because you can't spend outside the work plan. So, but now we need to be very careful on those people who give the responsibility to do the work. Because now if they go there, they do benchmarking, they come back, maybe there is a report, it's gathering there somewhere, and as you put it, the only thing they might be coming back with is those shopping bags and the duty-free shopping, something like that. So we need to ensure that there is accountability and there is a responsibility for every member. That's why I don't like when they say 65 members of parliament or 85. Give us the individual. A member of this parliament from this and this constituency went, so that as a voter, I will know that my MP went and did this and this and this. I will hold him accountable on what he did personally. But if you do it collectively, it now becomes a chorus,
of course, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, from, of course, the spokesman says that, probably we're sending a huge delegation and only a handful will come back with a report. So maybe it's important that we hold them accountable, specifically. But coming to Ben, and just picking up from what the doctor says, that we might not know what exactly is their working plan. But when you look at the delegations that are coming from different countries, and anyway, yes, it's not fair to judge us based on what the other countries are doing, but we can only compare and see the essence and see whether this is justified in a way. We're talking about one of the, the next country, or maybe the second country that has sent the biggest delegation is Nigeria with 20. 20 members, of course, of parliament representing them, or legislatures representing them. And we're talking about other countries like Indonesia that have sent 1, Portugal 1, Japan 6. Some of the countries are actually doing way better than the way we are doing. Are we justified to have sent these huge number when you look at the comparison that has been put aboard?
First and foremost, a very good morning.
Good morning.
Kenya did not send anyone to the United States.
Okay.
Members of parliament stole our money and sent themselves.
Mm.
We have bigger problems here. If you ask me, a sitting member of parliament for any constituency, I was watching news the other day. We have schools where people are living in dilapidated conditions.
Yeah.
And you would find a member of parliament from such a constituency has left to go and benchmark in the United States. It's us who should be going to benchmark in their constituency on how horribly a school can be run and should not be run in this world.
Right.
Secondly, because we did not send them, they're not supposed to say they're representing us.
Yeah.
We are in an era where it's possible to do video conferencing.
Exactly.
We can be able to put them in a hall somewhere and watch the proceedings from there. I would like to know, when did our parliament take a trip to Somalia or Southern Sudan to benchmark on how people are managing with poverty and horrible conditions? Then they can come and try and use that as a model to try and manage, because the bulk of our people are living in such conditions. I have not had us sending a delegation of 85 people to Somalia. So why are we sending 85 people to the United States of America? It's horrible. I mean, Japan, a country that is as good as a superpower, has got only one representative. So why are we sending 85? We did not send them. They have impoverished us. They have moved away with our money against our will. We have not given them the consent. And I think that's the problem. These people should be using their own money. Let's see how many of them will go to the United States. Yeah.
Exactly.
They won't.
They probably won't, true. And, coming back to you, of course, this is at a time when the government is trying to cut down on foreign travel.
Yes.
Of course, that directive of President Uhuru Kenyatta that we should reduce to the maximum, of course, the allowances that some of these people get as they travel across. And if the travels are not necessary, then we try and reduce this. Are we preaching water while we're taking wine?
Okay. What I think is happening in the parliament first is they might be trying to hold someone at ransom. You know, these parliamentarians are very funny guys. It's like my fellow colleague is saying we didn't send them.
Right.
But there might be something they are doing there that if you don't give us a trip, we won't approve this, we won't do this. You remember we had a stalemate between the Senate and the National Assembly,
yes.
Or the Division of Revenue Bill.
Yeah.
So we don't know what is going behind the scene, because they seem to be more of sabotage. Up to now, there is something started with about the salaries of the county officials who are threatening now to down their tools.
Right.
Now, if these guys down their tools, if you go to the interior, the innermost of these counties, there is a clinic there. That person at the clinic handling the maternity, doing 24 hours, has not been paid. And who are sabotaging this? That stalemate, the fight between the national government and the Senate. Now, maybe they are saying, if you don't give us this trip, or if you don't do this, we won't approve. And what do you do as governors? There is no revenue. The president is sabotaging the what do you call this, Agenda 4 on universal health care. So we are being held at ransom by these MPs who are going to a trip in a cruise ship. When we say 85 people, there is more than 2 buses.
Of course.
Yeah, so these
and
people are
actually,
going there.
they were not using the direct flight that was introduced from Nairobi all the way. So that means that they get stopover. Of course, there's payment for that stopover, maybe, or something of the sort. So it's a little bit more expensive than we all expect. Approximately, we've not really gotten the figures, but of course we approximate it at about 100 million shillings that is going to be spent on this particular trip. Is that necessary when we're troubled and, of course, battling with the kinds of debts that we have as a country?
No, that's not justifiable, because as my colleague said, why don't they do a video conferencing? They just sit somewhere, and there's a very nice room in the parliament, do video conferencing, have a clerk do the minutes, come up with a report. As good as that, as we say, Japan sending one person.
I know.
Hey, why are we sending 85?
And probably they're going to make
do
use of details of the conference and the reports from the conference more than we probably are going to do. Is it a clear indication then that we have so much so in terms of money that we do not even know what to use with, of course, as Right Honorable Raila Odinga would put it, and looking at the situation that we're experiencing today, you know, some of the government has not been able to meet the CBA agreements that they've had with different entities, including the teachers as it stands today. Yet they say we do not have this money. MCAs, of course, or maybe the counties are at a standstill because the government says we don't have a certain amount of money. Yet we send some of these people and we spend so much money aimlessly.
I think these are so many problems all in one. When you think about counties, for example, not being able to pay their staff, it's a different issue which I don't want to mix. But I think when you think about it, if you're a county, first you should be able to carry your own weight.
Right.
And I've always said that there are some counties that need to be scrapped from the map of this nation. Because if a county, I think what should change in law is that counties need to pay their salaries from their collections, so that what comes from the national government is spent on other things but not on paying salaries. What will happen is what Oparanya is exactly doing right now. He's realized that he has a burden of people he has employed that he doesn't need to have. And all of a sudden, because there's not enough money coming from national government, he has decided to rationalize his own county.
Right.
So people keep saying, you give us more money, but nobody's telling us how to make more money. About the trip and the amount of money we are spending, I think Kenyans have just given in too much liberty. We have given them our money, we have given them our liberty, we have given them control, and it appears like we are at their mercy.
Right.
These people will do anything, and they know we can do nothing.
All right, that's quite, and I think that is a slide, of course, smooth and transition to the next topic of discussion that we've brought aboard as to, of course, the standoff that we witnessed today within the counties. This even as the county workers threaten that they're going to go on strike in the event that they do not receive their payments by Monday. That should be the 12th of August 2019. And here we are, and the county workers are suffering. So in as much as maybe we might say, well, the governors should not blame anything on the county, on the national government or anything, or maybe we should not even expect them to ask for more. Then the common Mwananchi is the person who's suffering, because I can tell you for free, the governors have already gotten their salaries, that's for sure. So when you see the people at the county level not getting their salaries, then it means we need to do something so at least we are able to fix the problem for the county workers as it stands today. Is it necessary, or this is just a joke? I mean, is there reason enough for, first of all, the delays of salaries with these workers?
I think, first look at it. The difference was about between 316 to 335 billion. That was the issue. Then the government offered 320, they wanted 335. The difference is 15 billion.
Yeah.
I can tell you for free, there are governors who've been taken to court and their account has 2 billion. Another governor, their account has got 5 billion. And others have got figures that we are not even able to mention on TV. If I start mentioning the zeros, the show will be over before we are done counting the amount of money. So basically, they are moving to court and paying lawyers on our taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Fighting between different levels of government, about 15 billion. Money that if those governors met and each went to their account, they can raise twice that money in one sitting. They only need 1 hour to raise that 15 billion. Each governor aseme kila mtu ili ameiba aeke hapa.
Right.
And I'm saying this without apology because, you know, I don't want to mention name, but there are governors who have gone to court and you've had, this guy was found with 2 billion. This guy was found. In Nairobi, I remember there was a guy who was, and now the case has gone to even a better stage where a person who was just a finance officer earning 85,000 shillings had $1 billion plus in their account.
In their account.
So basically, let them stop wasting our energy and telling us the reason they are not paying officers at the county is because they do not have money from the national government.
Right.
These governors have got enough money to pay their own staff. Number two, nobody knows how much is collected at the county government. We only hear of how much
is they're
they're receiving and how much they are not receiving, especially how much they are not receiving and how much they are being frustrated.
Has devolution grown to that level where we can witness, of course,
it's actually devil illusion. It's not really devolution.
Right.
It's a devil illusion.
Should we lose hope on this? Because then Kenyans have bestowed so much hope on this devolution.
You see, the intention of devolution was not that we devolve corruption. The intention of devolution was to devolve services. Now, devolution has gotten to the point that it is just created another 47 grabbers. and then they are flanked by some MCAs who are also like looting everywhere and doing all sorts of things. So devolution right now, for me, I don't think it is working. People will come and say we are fighting devolution. We are not fighting devolution. What we wanted was devolution of services.
Would it be a conversation that we should have?
Is devolution of corruption.
All right. Well, I don't want us to go to this direction, but I think I'll still ask, based on your, of course, way of, or line of thought, should we then, as we have this conversation of a referendum, should we reconsider the whole crafting of devolution? Because I've not had someone talking about, of course, us, scrapping off or maybe doing away with devolution. They all talk about how best we can strengthen it. And when you look at some of the proposals, basically some of the proposals that are still there in the current constitution. So as we have this conversation of a referendum, should we then so much so put our focus and base our focus on trying to see that 100% it totally works, or we do away with it?
No, for now, I can see some fruits of devolution, because as I usually say that when you go to a county referral hospital, they used to call it level 5, but they upgraded it to level county referral hospital.
Yes.
There are some elements where you can see they are working. I can give an example of Narok County, where you can see when you go to they have an ICU, they have an HDU, they have a dialysis, and there is a day I went on a Wednesday, and I found there were 7 beds with people being done dialysis.
Wow.
So to some extent, those people should be lining up in either Eldoret Teaching and Referral Hospital or KNH, but to some extent it's working.
It's working.
But now, in this referendum, or what we should be talking about now is the role, the oversight role of the Senate. They should do more to make sure that these people are located and they are accountable for it. Because I usually say that we have the independent offices, Office of the Auditor General and the Office of the Controller of Budget.
Yeah.
Those people should be given exclusive
Powers and assets
to check, to monitor.
All right.
Let's give money to the counties, but now the independent offices, wherever there is an issue, they know whom to call. They can call the DCI or the
DPP. All right.
DPP,
we come back to expound more on that, of course, and especially on that note of health that you've brought aboard. Because if there's a sector that is being affected hugely, or in fact, not just now because of this standoff, but basically right from the inception of devolution, then health got to be it. And at some point in time, we've had arguments that maybe we would not have devolved health in the first place. So we come back with that discussion. Remember, it's important to interact with us. Hashtag New Day KE, SMS line 40920. Let's get to hear what you have to say. You can as well call in, and we'll certainly be glad to get your point as we expound more with my panel after this break. Welcome back. And now the fight, of course, over county snowballs into crisis. That is one story that is being highlighted right here on the Standard newspaper as to, in regards to the question of health, what we were talking about. And of course, the union officials coming out to say that they are not going to relent in trying to fight on behalf of the county workers, health workers for that matter. And they, according to them, sort of feel like the governors or the counties are not justified, of course, not to pay the workers, because then this has got nothing to do with the standoff. And it would be absurd to say that because there's been that standoff, now the counties are broke and now they're not able to pay the workers. Coming to you, Ben, in regards to that, I think I'll still ask the very same question. Is it reason enough, of course, for the counties, the county workers to have their salaries delayed?
No, I don't think it is, because first and foremost, counties are supposed to plan themselves the way every other employed person plans themselves, to the point that if you're employed and for some reason your salary is delayed, somehow your children still eat. So a county should plan itself in a manner such that if, for example, they do not have money coming in at the point in time when they're supposed to have money, they should have some reserve of some sort. To me, they appear like this child who eats everything that was served at lunch, eats everything that was served at dinner. They don't have a fridge, they don't keep nothing. So if in the morning they wake up, and you don't go to the shop to buy bread in the morning. You know, they don't even plan. It's, you know, the way you'd have a house and you'd say, let me have this pint of milk, I'll have it for breakfast tomorrow morning. Counties are being run like this home where if you need a kitungu, you send for a kitungu, you cook. And then if you need cooking oil, you buy for 5 shillings for evening, you cook. A county should run in a way that, you know, even the most stupid of homes, you will see someone who uses a kerosene stove has got some, you know, mafuta kidogo ya taa amejiekea mahali. There's no single time you come and hear that a home has got completely nothing, hata chumvi hakuna. This is how our counties are being run, and that's why I say our governors have failed. Number 2, I think we need to change the way the law is. Because right now, if you're a governor, you can seek medical help anywhere. If you're a county official, if you lived in the US states, for example, the equivalent of a ward, by law, your child is not supposed to go to a school outside the equivalent of your ward. And it doesn't matter who you are. So that if Bill Clinton is living in Waithaka ward, the kids will study in Waithaka
So
ward.
he will be forced to ensure
So they'll be forced to ensure that those schools
yeah.
meet that standard. Those hospitals meet that standard, and everything meets that standard. The problem we have in this country is when we allow our leaders and our civil servants to seek education outside of the public schools, and when we allow them to also seek medical care outside of our public hospitals. If by law we make sure that every person, especially the elected leaders, their children go to public schools, and the hospitals they attend are public hospitals, utashanga, they'll be the best in the world. Yes.
Well, so of course this legal dilemma, what does it mean for you know, devolution, as he puts it very well? Okay, the laws maybe have not gone to that point, but then again, what is it that we can do right now to salvage the name of devolution, the goodness that comes along with devolution?
Again, I'll suggest that the Senate do their work, because I know of 2 counties in this country who are self-sufficient. They collect enough revenues that can allow them to pay the salaries. But the law doesn't allow you to use money at the source. You collect money at the county first.
At the national government and back.
And then it comes to the national county and then come back. And then again, if you have to use the money at source, the MCAs need to have a motion, debate it, and approve. And then after approving it, it has again to come to the Senate, and then all those bureaucracies. So in an event, like we know, every start of financial year, there is a crisis. Because we should not be working haphazardly, that each and every time it is the new financial year, after June, July, we have a problem with salaries. So there should be at least some consensus that at this period, we tell the government, release this money, despite the adults, have our reserve, something like that, or allow the MCAs to pass a bill, a motion, and then it is assented to by the governor, and they use the money at source. Because now the only counties are Nairobi County and Narok County government. The rest, they cannot pay for their salaries. They are not sufficient.
Well, pretty sad. And your thoughts on this, Ben? The standoffs that we witnessed today, of course, that urge to see that devolution is a success. And many people proposing what Doctor proposes here, that maybe we should strengthen the Senate. Do you suppose that that will be the ultimate solution? Because senators are there, yes, maybe not with so much power and vigor as would be expected. Will it be the ultimate solution towards seeing to it that indeed the dream that we had for devolution, you know, sort of is realizable?
I do not think that strengthening the Senate will help us in any way. Neither do I think that weakening Parliament or any other institution will help us in any way. We have a bad mind frame, and that no matter what law we make, we go around it. I keep saying our Constitution is too many pages, close to 200 pages. The American one is 10 pages. Yet they follow it, and they love it. And they will not do the things we do.
One.
Yes. So for us, we are drowning in laws. I mean, more than 300 acts of parliament. And every time you make a law trying to forestall a particular problem, Kenyans circumvent it. Yeah. So creating more laws is not going to help us. We need to sit down as a nation and agree that we are too greedy, we are competing too much, and we are moving in the wrong direction. And we need leaders who mean well for this country.
country.
Because it doesn't matter which, I mean, Kibaki ruled us under the old constitution throughout his tenure. In fact, when the 2010 constitution came, he was clever. He accepted it, but he shelved it. He did not use it. He did not bring about devolution immediately. He left that problem to the person who's coming next. But
do we have a tendency of doing that?
But never did we under Kibaki feel as though we have a bad constitution, though it was the same constitution that Moi ruled us on. So when you have a good leader, the constitution really sometimes doesn't matter. Because right now we have a very progressive constitution, one of the best in the world. But look at the things we are doing, very atrocious things. Sending 85 people to the USA is equivalent of killing. You can imagine how many teachers 100 million shillings can pay, or how many county workers 100 million shillings can pay. So we have a bad attitude, we have a bad culture, and we need to change the way our people are wired.
Okay. All right. Coming to that very same point that he brings about, and I think it's very important that we discuss this, because the reasons why we have this standoff within the counties, number one, of course, one attributed to the fact that we've not gotten proper accountability. Probably from the previous phases of devolution, of course, the governors at that particular time. So if they were not able to account or maybe to give us, proper services based on what they were given, then it gives us that feel that maybe it's not necessary to award them all this amount of money. And some of the governors are, are victims of this. And we sort of see the trends in the kinds of leadership that we witness today. The reason why some of the CBAs have not been, not the curriculum based, of course, we're talking about the agreements that we have, of course, within different sectors and the government. The reason why some of them have not been implemented is because, of course, there was that phase of leadership at that particular time when the agreement was being made, and they knew very well that they're going to be out of office. So they didn't worry much, because they knew, okay, well, the next person then will come and face the trouble. And typically what we witness with devolution, not all the governors came back. Actually, majority of the governors went home. And now they're facing the pain or the pinch of what predecessors did that was not right, or maybe the people they succeeded did that was not right. So what can we do to transform the leadership, to transform it to a leadership that is good enough to think about tomorrow? I was talking to someone, they were telling me a story of how Indians operate in terms of business. They do their businesses thinking about their next and the next and the next generation. Why is it that we do not have this mind where we can craft a kind of leadership of, the kind of way we deal with businesses, thinking of the next generation? So that way then, it means then you'll have abundance for the rest of time.
I think we need also to inform the public that they are the people. They are the people who actually give power. I think most of the citizens tend to underrate their strength. They don't know that they can ask for these leaders to be accountable. Because now, imagine a governor comes in. Okay, democracy is very expensive, because every governor comes with his own manifesto. He tries to implement it. Now, an opponent comes and wins over the incumbent. Now, the problem now is he tries to leave he doesn't want to implement whatever the other governor tried to do, which is very, very, very detrimental. But now, the Senate again should have what we call an implementation committee. You remember before the new constitution, there was a transition authority, where it was helping the municipalities and to move from municipalities to the counties, the transition authority. So I think we should have an oversight, actually within the Senate, because as my colleague is saying, the Senate is okay, but the people who are there should actually work and make sure that we are the real oversight. What are the programs that are there in the county? You said you will do A, B, C, D. How many have you done? Have you done A, B? So now we finish that, and then now the next one, when the other person comes in, because our country or our counties are in perpetuity. There is no way that they can say there is no continuity or there is no development or what. So if we have that footprint, that by the end of the 5 years, every county should have achieved this, the next governor who is coming will have to start from there. And now, the general public should know that we are the people, we the people. We are the people with power. We gave you this power, We want to see how you are doing with it.
Yeah.
What have you done? And if we become, there are a lot of public participation, our MCAs, our representatives, we have everybody, the charge leaders, the opinion leaders, they should all these governors be accountable to and make sure that everything they said is being done.
Right.
If it's not being done, ask why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ben, while you might say that we have enough laws and we're swimming in them, and of course they're good enough to deal with us, sometimes there are some amendments that are needed to sort of streamline issues. And in this case, I would want to ask, we see what Punguza Mizigo proposes in terms of the presidency, you know, a 7-term, or 7 years, of course,
Yeah,
or one term, 7 years.
Yes.
And in his very own proposal, he foresees this as a way of ensuring that we get, you know, of course, responsible leadership from the president that will put on board. So when we look at, of course, how we can craft the term limits and, you know, the term duration and all that, do you suppose then that, because then counties are equally small governments, you know, we call them minor governments, so they're governments in their very own special way. So if at all we are to adopt this aspect, or maybe this line of course, a term, as proposed by Punguza Mizigo, and it works well and augurs well in trying to ensure that it crafts our leader to be more responsible and to be more focused on developing and, you know, sort of just ensuring that they get to achieve their legacy before they exit the stage, then their likelihoods would want to adapt that also at that level of the county. Do you suppose then this extension of term limits, reduction of course, the term limits, and, you know, just twisting and playing around with the terms would be an answer to ensuring that we get proper leadership? Or maybe good figures that, okay, in as much as maybe you might be a crafty leader, then the laws on ground or maybe your terms sort of coin you to a level whereby you have to abide by that.
Julius Caesar, one of the best known leaders in the world, ruled for 2 years. And he conquered the known world.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela, closer home, was in for a 4-year term. And he did well.
Yeah. Did he?
He did well.
Well, there's a debate
well.
as to that.
Yes,
well,
but I would say
whether
this.
he certainly did well.
Yes.
But anyway, at least we
Yes.
celebrate him up
Yes.
until
he
date.
he transitioned.
Yeah.
Now, when you come even closer home, Matiang'i was not at the helm of the medication ministry for a very long time.
Yeah.
But we can see a yellow bus in every corner of this country, and we can see a few things that he has
That's
done.
true.
A 7-year president basically tells me I'm guaranteed of this term. So I'll fight for it. And once I'm there, it's a fattening camp. I have 7 years of state luxury. I can choose to do nothing. My term is going to be there for 7 years. I'm not going for another one. I have seen people who have that attitude, even they become MCAs elected. They're saying, ni term moja.
Yeah.
They go back to their wards with tinted cars, rolled windows. They never attend even a matanga. Wanasema hii kazi ni kujipanga. Unafanya term moja, unaachia mwingine. Now that's the kind of mentality we do not want in this country. I think, first and foremost, we probably need a kind of a bureau that takes care of who actually does go into a ballot. Because it has been proven in this country that the most atrocious people become the most popular people. And when they become the most popular people, they win elections. So we need to have, like now, the ethics and anti-corruption, ethics making sure that somebody of a specific type of character does not even find their way to the ballot paper.
Exactly.
Because if they find their way to the ballot paper, for sure, there will be... I mean, we saw somebody boxing gates, sleeping on tarmac, doing all sorts of things, climbing gates, and today he's our governor. I mean, what did we expect?
I know.
And we have seen all sorts of leaders who have done all sorts of crazy stuff, and today they're in positions of leadership.
Okay,
So what needs to happen is we need to correct that, so that before people even find their way to the ballot, they have been checked, and we can say that this person is suitable to be presented to Wananchi. Otherwise, if you present Wananchi with anything, they'll choose anything.
Wow.
I mean, I was in a ward somewhere where they were saying, so there's a guy who roasts mutura in the evening. They said he's so social, he's so nice. He does his mutura so well. So they're planning to make him MCA of that area.
All right.
So I was asking them why. They said because anajua kuongea na watu na mutura yake ni tamu. So now, that person
So has the electorate failed? In a way?
In a very big way.
Okay.
Yeah,
in a very
I
big
agree.
way.
They are really
Because they are right now, they are MCAs who could not read their oath of office. Oath of office. Instead of saying I, they were saying one. And then now that person is supposed to read bills that amount in billions of shillings. And the doctors today, it's very unfortunate. They go to school for those years. And then they attend You know, it takes a lot to be
It
a
takes
doctor.
a lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
And
tell
then the
you that.
person determining your salary now, the person's, because health is devolved.
Yes.
The person determining how much a doctor is paid is this guy who could not read his oath of office.
Okay.
So then you ask, what is wrong at counties? Why are counties not running properly? But if a guy cannot read the oath of office, if a guy cannot read Taifa Leo newspaper, how do you expect that guy to debate effectively on a motion that talks about billions of shillings? And how is that person going to pay a doctor who went to campus for those many years?
Okay, certainly, of course, a big question as to the role of the electorate in this. Reminds me of what we've been treated to, of course, over the week by Sonko and Millie. And somebody here says that they owe us an apology for not living up to their titles. And, you know, sometimes, yes, someone could be qualified, but equally, the things that they do while in office, you know, sort of beats logic and, in a way, puts a lot of questions on their, credibility and also, of course, integrity in a way. So, of course, we're not going to discuss that, but then again, it was quite unfortunate to witness this. But just coming to this aspect of...
I think I needed to comment on that.
You wanted to react to this.
Especially
okay, react
to
to
this.
this.
To the electorates.
To what he was saying, the electorate, the role of the electorate.
You know,
yes.
the problem we have with the electorates is when you go to them and tell them, I want to represent you in parliament, I want to make sure that the CDF, all those are actually spent the way they should be. The first thing they will tell you, how much do you have to offer? To pay, there is a way they kill us.
Yeah, it's all about, it's money, yes.
If you have nothing, they will tell you,
You're nobody.
Sao, hakuna.
But it's been contrary to what we've witnessed with the MCAs. Most of the MCAs actually had nothing to offer. But anyway, they had, of course, good language and they could speak well, as Bernard put it, yeah?
But now, again, I blame the electors because they need to elect somebody of substance. They should see that this person is of character. Again, I also blame I had an issue with salaries and remuneration because you find a professor in a university, an MCA is earning more than a professor. So it beats the logic because this person doesn't know even how to...
And even the teachers, anyway, in
teachers,
the primary and secondary schools.
An MCA is earning more. But okay, what they were saying, the justification of that was that they wanted to make MCA seat attractive, to attract those... The professors, the doctors.
Attractive enough because they say if there's any member of parliament or maybe, of course, one of the legislatures or representatives or leaders that get, in the 5-year term period, of course, combining the campaign money that they've used, they always get what they used and more. So at least for them, it has paid so well, or it pays so well.
But again, now they should not pay, unless they should pay a professor more than MC. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we get to sort of maybe reach the last bits of this particular topic, Ben, you confidently sort of feel like maybe the governors should not be awarded this amount of money. First, the interference of this by the president, or maybe the coming in by the president, which of course is probably would say is against what is enshrined in the Constitution. The executive should not interfere whatsoever. And we know very well when the president speaks, then there are likelihoods that what he says is what, of course, the law will go by. So we're looking at the role of the executive in addressing this, the role of the courts, because this standoff is there, and they're now sending them back, of course, to the 2 levels of houses to address this. And generally, the roles of the houses. And looking at how maybe unfair it could be to some of the governors who are doing well in their very own respective counties. And, you know, the county members sort of feel like, of course, these people are doing well. A couple of times we've seen people showering praise to the likes of Lonyangapuo, that they are doing well in terms of course, addressing the issues at the county level and all that. Wouldn't it be justified for them to get even more so that at least they can continue doing this work? For this good work?
Okay, thank you. I think in terms of the president interfering, he's justified. I mean, he has campaigned the whole country.
Is it not
he's the
out
president?
Of order?
No, he's the president of this republic.
Okay.
And when it gets to a point when, I mean, think about it. Who is a judge? And as much as I'm a lawyer and I respect the division of powers, I mean, separation of powers, a judge is a guy who you did not participate in his election.
Yeah.
Probably if an election was held today, he would be number last in an MCA race. But that guy makes a decision that is so binding on the whole nation. And a president who was elected by millions of people is not able to make a decision that is binding on the nation.
All right.
You can see the iron of it. It needs to get to a point where there's one person who holds the interest of Wanjiku at heart.
Yeah.
A person who comes and says, no, I'm the father of the nation. And if it gets to a point where a decision has to be made on behalf of Wanjiku, we will make that decision. And when he said there is no money, he did right. Because this money is not coming from the governors. It's not coming from the MCAs. It's coming from you and me.
Yeah.
And the president has looked at us and he has seen that we voted for him. And he has seen the pain that we are going through to be able to raise this money that the governors are asking for. So what he told them is live within your means. I mean, he did not say anything special. I have seen teachers who've been told to live within their means. I have seen lecturers who've been told, maybe hama hiyo nyumba ya 40,000 and ukaishi nyumba ya 15,000. So start living within your means. If you're a governor, why do you need 7 vehicles escorting you, for example, and spending taxpayers' fuel and so on and so forth? So let's start reducing on those unnecessary expenditures and start building the nation.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, well, as we wind up on this, because you are that person who sort of feels like, you know, strengthening the Senate would be a good thing towards ensuring that this is a success. Today, we witness differences that have been clear between, of course, the deputies and the governors, you know. First, of course, a lot of talk going rounds that they're likely, some of them would even want to witch hunt on their governor so that at least when the governor is out, then they're able to get to the helm. And the greedy society that we have would push them to a point whereby they would even want to see the governors dead so they can elevate, or they can be automatically elevated. And we've witnessed that. Almost something of the sort of played out in Kiambu when we saw the deputy saying that it's important that I take charge upon the court's ruling that is still not so clear as it stands today. And when we talk about having that strength on the Senate, what would it mean for the governors? And would we not start again, would we not, of course, reach at that point where we'll again start dealing with the question of which hand between these levels of course, government at that point of the county?
The difference that might occur between the governor and
differences that have been there, by the way. It's only now that they're speaking in the same language in terms of course, the division of the revenue bill.
You know, the Constitution is very clear on the role of the deputy governor.
Right.
Just to be, he cannot work without being delegated duties. So most of them might feel they are so idle. They just become the flower girls, and then that is now where the frustration comes in. But what they should know under the Leadership Act is that you have to be disciplined. Your boss is your boss. If you know that, there is no way you will try to sabotage your boss. You know, sometimes power is so sweet that you might be swayed, which is more like a treason, because you should not wish your boss bad.
Bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like wishing your brother to die so that you can inherit his wife. That is so unfortunate, because you might even go yourself. So, but at the end of the day, that working relationship should always be there, because you know that the success of your governor is your success. If the governor fails, you are the ones who also fail.
Okay.
So I really like a situation where they have a good working relation, and wherever they are given money, I want the reign of the Auditor General. That's why wherever there is a vacuum, it is. I saw Mutula Kilonzo Jr. saying that. Was it Mutula? Someone in the Senate saying that there are two people who are very important, and their terms are ending, and if we don't recruit the successors, the counties, there will be a lot of bad things going on in the county that can make sure you can also you might start seeing governors spending the DCI. Yeah. So those, the Auditor General and the Control of Budget, those are the people who should be there. Even if they are given money. Me, I'm of the opinion the counties be given money, but the oversight bodies should do their work.
Right.
I want to see the Control of Budget and the Auditor General saying that this is the report for this county. It is excellent. Is it qualified or unqualified under the audit terms?
All right.
Yeah.
And we go for a short breather. Yes. You want to react to that? I also want to ask you one question. So 30 seconds, 30 seconds. React to it.
On the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, I've always felt that we need to change it from just setting salaries to become the body that pays salaries for all civil servants in the country. So that what would then happen is that the national government would put money in an account run by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, so that every person, if for example they are being paid on the 30th, they are all paid on the 30th by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. commission. That would really help. So that at counties, at every level, they are paid. So that when there's no money, so that even the governors don't earn, and the senators and the MPs don't earn, then it is felt universally. But when you have Parliamentary Service Commission paying parliamentarians, governors paying their nurses, so and so, so and so, so and so, it becomes a mess. Yes.
Another thing that we need to address, appointments. I think you also, what happened, of course, after we lost Ken Okoth, and then we start asking ourselves, how do we appoint some of these officials? How do we appoint some of course, the members of parliament within the county? And, you know, the representation was funny when you say that, oh, when someone, you know, a governor stands in the podium and says that, oh, so-and-so told me to put the mama there so that at least they do not have to go through tough times. Then you ask yourself, what is the procedure of appointment of some of these figures? What is your reaction to that as we go for break?
A quick one. First, people have always blamed the girl child.
Yeah.
People have always said, oh, this girl child slept her way into power, and so on and so forth. I usually say, unfortunately, I don't blame the girl child. Because she did not have powers that she abused, okay? Yeah. What she used was her body, which she abused or not abused, that's not our issue, it's her body. And I'm not advocating for it.
For that,
The person who abused power and who failed the test of Article 6 of the Constitution is the appointing authority.
Right.
Because the person who appointed knew that these seats are meant for people with disability. Is he wishing disability on this woman? Okay, it's also marginalized and so on and so forth. And then even if they're marginalized, they have to be qualified so as to bring substantive material into the debating chambers.
Right.
But now what's happening is like we are literally sending naked people into debating chambers.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And quite an interesting debate. I think we should have this, you know, much more, and we expound more on it, on how best we should focus on, of course, the appointments that we have, the appointing authorities, and how best they're doing what is expected. Of course, nepotism, tribalism, and all these things have taken center stage. And it is pretty much unfortunate because qualified Kenyans lack these opportunities just because they do not know so and so and so. Pretty much unfortunate. So we take a short break. We come back to discuss, of course, the standoff that we witnessed in the education sector today. Ben Kinuthia mentioned something to do with how best Matiang'i did a good job. Then why is it that today we're still not getting progress, even as it stands? After this break. And we're back with our cups of tea, right? So yes, at least it will rejuvenate us towards the last 30 minutes of the program, or maybe 27 so, to speak minutes of the program with my panel right here, of course, my able panel of Dr. Moitilel Nahashon and Ben Kinuthia, who's a lawyer and an analyst here on board. And we discuss the question of education, the standoff that we witnessed today, of course, with TSC and NAT. And for a long time, NAT has been there, of course. Well, let's just say Sosion. Sosion has been there. Well, for a long time, they also have wanted him out.
Yeah.
Well, before we even get into the discussion, picture a situation or picture NAT without Sosion. Paint that picture, please, for us.
You know, it's very hard to differentiate between NAT and Sosion.
Yep.
When Sosion speaks, you don't know if he's speaking on his own capacity or he's speaking on behalf of the NAT. Yeah. But that's how unionists are supposed to be. Okay. Without a very strong unionist, you are nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
he's a force to record.
He's actually, he's
yes,
a force.
Picture NAT without Sosion. Picture, of course, KMPDU without the likes of Waluga. What would it be like? What would be the, the welfare of the teachers that are under this umbrella?
I'll tell you. These are total failures.
Oh.
At independence, we were trying to fight poverty, ignorance, and disease. In the 90s, we were fighting poverty, ignorance, and disease. Today, we have much more poverty, much more ignorance, and much more disease. Name it cancer. I hope hamjaniekea hapa. So,
just die pole.
Yeah, so if at independence, the teachers were fighting for better wages, better working conditions.
Right.
And 50 years on, they are fighting for the same things. It tells you the Secretary Generals have failed.
Okay.
Because what they did was not future thinking. Because if they had initially, at the very early stages, I mean, I see landlords who think better than secretary generals of these unions. A landlord will tell you, they'll give you a contract that says at the end of every year, rent will inajiongeza na 5% or 10%. So what was so hard in a right-thinking secretary general to negotiate terms that would have had teachers' salaries as self-increasing at a specific period of time?
Okay.
That would have worked. But right now, they would have had like a simple phrase. You know, in law we say, the small dotted line takes away everything that what is in bold has given. They would have had something to the effect that the rates of teacher salary will increase proportionately to the inflation. So that if the inflation is at 9% this year, so it would have been anchored in law, it would have been done. So these are failures of secretary generals. Right. They have failed for 50 years, and they continue to glutton and make noise and bang their chests and say, I mean, if we were fighting poverty, ignorance, and disease at independence, and today we are fighting more poverty, more ignorance, and more disease, then it tells you that these secretary generals have failed.
Then why is it that the teachers, many teachers and members of NAT, so much so celebrate these figures?
They don't celebrate them. It is the teachers who want Sossion out. And I'm saying this knowing he's my friend. We meet once in a while. But it's the teachers who want him out. He should have been gracious enough. I mean, Mandela served for 4 years. To say, you know what, I have done what I could. Let's bring in someone fresh and see what they can do.
I spoke to about 4 teachers yesterday. They were like, Sossion is really doing a good job. Akisimama hivi, when he calls for a meeting, we're all there. We're trying to listen to what
he's allowed them to think that the best way to fight for teachers is to shout. Is to make the government
with
look
so
foolish.
Much confidence, yes.
But what they've forgotten and the teachers need to know is that what they need is a meticulous person who is able to think and outwit the government. It is people who outwit governments who become good leaders. These people have not been able to outwit government. They've not been able to make government sign for something and implement something and then say, wah, na hapo tumechezwa. You get? So he's not serving them right. But he's making noise.
In a way, it makes sense. Takes me back to sometimes in 2016 while I was covering, of course, some of these pressers by NAT, called upon by NAT. Of course, there was a long, prolonged, strike period or demonstration period by the teachers. And all of a sudden, there was a change of tone on how Sossion was speaking yesterday and the next day. So there was a lot of anger within this particular, of course, presser, because teachers sort of felt like, has he received something that he has changed the tone all of a sudden? And maybe that's basically what happens with some of the union, of course, representatives. And I think I sort of agree with what Ben sort of brings aboard in terms of that. But indeed, salaries, bone of contention right from the word go. Up until today, the standoff that we witnessed between TSC and NAT is based on the fact that, of course, there's an issue with the salary. And Friday, of course, TSC stopped the pay rise of about 624 teachers who are NAT members, citing a July 26, 2019 court ruling by Justice Brian Onyaga. And, of course, this says that then we're likely to witness a strike in the event that we're going for, of course, third term. And this is something that Sossion has said boldly. So this standoff that we're witnessing today, this question of salaries, what would be the ultimate solution to the standoff that we're witnessing today in the event, of course, that we have these stakeholders sitting down and coming back or coming on board with a long-term solution to it? Because the CBA was discussed in 2016, sorry. 2016, of course, is a CBA agreement that was supposed to be implemented from 2017 all the way to 2021. But then they're implementing this in reverse. Yes, at some point in time, yes, they did it. And now, of course, TSC thinks otherwise, and they say, oh, no, maybe we did not do the right thing, so we need to reverse this whole process. What would it mean, and what would be the ultimate solution?
One funny thing about when you're talking about money is that I can give you a promissory note today, and then the following day I say, sorry, I think we need to renegotiate the terms. Yeah, that's why the moment you go to the labor court or any other court, they try to see the human rights part. What is if we do this, who is suffering? And if we do this, who is benefiting? But now, the issue, when there is a court order, it's very difficult to to even renegotiate. Because first of all, you need to obey that court order.
But interpretation of the court order is now also what is bringing in.
Yeah, that is another issue.
Because then, of course, TSC would say that this is what we said. Okay, the court order says that we should not raise the salaries based on, of course, performance and all that. That is what the court order says. But then TSC in their very own power say that it has to be under this. And if it's not under this, then the people who are under NAT are not going to get any raise on that. And that, on the other hand, sort of feels like if we have to have the raise, maybe it should be based on how long the teacher has stayed there, of course, their qualifications and you know, other crucial things that they're bringing about. So what does it mean then? Is there lack of proper interpretation of the court orders that we have today?
No, I think the court order was very clear. But now, what was actually the basis? What is not coming out clearly is the appraisal. How are they being appraised? Was it because of you have a degree, you have a master's, or was it about your how much you have performed the output, or how many years have you served in the service?
TSC was proposing this because they had a career progression guideline, and their proposal was that, of course, you get increment based on, you know, the performances as contained in that. And remember, there was that particular point when there was this argument that then there'll be monitoring of the performances at that particular time. So Sion or Nat on the other side wanted the promotions be based on merit, of course, seniority. Merit in a way is more or less like, of course, the performance in a way. And then seniority, vacancies, academic and professional qualifications. And yesterday, equally, I had a conversation with a teacher who was saying that imagine a situation whereby you've been there for years and years, then a new teacher is hired and they're coming in to get the same salary. Somebody you probably taught in school. So they're coming in to get the very same amount of money that you're getting, yet you've been there for years.
That is now where we need, you know, the Teacher Service Commission is a body by itself. They have the HR, they have everything. But now, there should be rationalization because in TSC, if you have more than a bachelor's, it is useless. I saw somebody who was graduating in Kisii County, a primary school ed teacher with a PhD.
Wow.
But now the salary is just the way it was supposed to be for that. So the progression for the TSC is very archaic. Can call it that for lack of a better term, because I don't know if Sossion or the unionists are fighting for working condition, salaries, or even the career progression. Because you can't be having a bachelor's forever and you're in the same job group, and the CEO TSC blatantly says on national TV, if you have a master's or a PhD, that is yours. Keep it for yourself, but what we just recognize is this 1 degree. Yeah, so there is it needs to be rationalized so that it be like even the Public Service Commission. Public Service Commission, you go for a training, you go to Kenya School of Government with a certificate. It is cumulatively related to your progression to the next job group. But for TSC, you stagnate there, and you have a very loud unionist, the leader of the NAT, and there is nothing going on. There's nothing going on.
Quite unfortunate. And of course, what we know goes on very well are the strikes. And you know, he will always, Sossion will always be there to ensure that his threats are accomplished. And we are worried about what will happen in September, because there are likelihoods then that our kids will not go to school. When we're talking about the collective bargaining agreements that have been there, you know, there's always an issue with that, of course, on the health sector with the government. Why is it that it's so hard for, of course, the TSC, maybe the government at large, to implement some of the agreements that they had? If you suppose, you probably talk of what would be the ultimate solution, where maybe we can say that there will be an automatic raise, and that one should be enshrined and should be known. If we're not able to implement these small things or these small ways that have been these small agreements that have been put about towards the increment, what makes you think that we can have an ultimate solution, one-time solution that would be implemented?
First and foremost, let me tell you what works. What works is we need to call all our members of parliament and ask them, how much do the teachers of your children earn? How much do the teachers of your children earn? And I think what needs to happen, and I'm not inciting Kenyans, is that when public schools go on strike, private schools also need not to be operating. Because then these children have an undue advantage over the others. If teachers went on strike tomorrow and then private schools were made not to operate tomorrow, what would happen is that automatically our members of parliament would pass that money goes to those teachers. They would not even ask how much it is. Because a member of parliament cannot stand to see their child at home for one day.
Allow me to pick this call, Ben, before we proceed. John, good morning.
Oh, good morning sana Linda na wageni wetu katika
Busiere, ulitufundisha jana.
Hello?
Busiere, ulitufundisha jana ukasema huko mnasema Busiere.
Busiere yani ni habari ya asubuhi. Asante sana.
Ndio maneno yako sasa.
Linda.
Ndio.
Wacha niseme hivi leo sitatoa mapendekezo lakini nataka kushangaa.
Ndio.
Mapendekezo yangu ni ya kushangaa. Linda, kila mwaka, kila muhula, Linda tunaona walimu wanalia. Linda tunaona walimu wanalia. Na hii maneno Linda nakwambia yalianza 1997 na mpaka sasa hivi na hatujui yataendelea mpaka siku gani na yataisha mpaka siku gani. So mimi huwa nashangaa kwa nini ni walimu peke yake na Ministry of Health peke yake ndio tunaona wakilialia, wakiandaa migomo, wakilalamika, wananyanyaswa, wapewi pesa za kutosha, wakitaka hili na hili alitekeleze na serikali au mwajiri wao. Na ukiangalia upande wa watu kama Ministry of Lands, hatuoni wakilia, administration sector, hatuoni wakilia, traffic, polisi, hatuoni wakilia, na kadhalika Linda. Mimi ninashangaa mgomo ya walimu na madaktari yote yataisha siku gani? Mchangao wangu ndio huo Linda. Leo sina mchango wowote.
Tumeshukuru sana. Asante sana. Of course, one of our staunch viewers, and I think hiyo ni mshangao ambayo kila Mkenya ako nayo. Every other time, why is it the health sector and, of course, the education sector, typically of what happens across other African countries, and you just ask yourself, what could be the main problem? We continue, of course.
So what I was saying is precisely that the reason the strike is happening is because the person you're telling to bring an end to the strike has never been affected by that strike. If it has not affected you, if your children are not feeling the pinch, as a legislature, you don't care. I'm telling you, these people have added themselves 250,000 each in terms of house rent, coming from people who are not able to pay 1,500 shillings for rent, nyumba za mabati hapa Dagoretti. So those people, if the day will come when an MP's son or daughter will not go to school because their teachers are on strike, then it will be understood.
Right.
Secondly, I've told you again, since independence, this government has not planned. They knew that cumulatively, the cost of running government will go high because inflation is going high. The only institution that can bring or can tame inflation is the government. I keep looking at this country. There is an insatiable demand for timber in China. Any timber you can produce, they can buy.
Right.
If when Uhuru took over power, we had taken our idle land and planted cedar trees, they grow in 5 to 7 years. You can sell one cedar tree for anything between 10,000 and 20,000. If we had planted just 100 million trees, Kenya would have had in excess of 1 trillion shillings just from selling those trees. That can take care of 1/3 of our budget. In essence, we don't run government as business. I have not seen our government thinking of how we can use the resources that have been given to us by God to make money for this nation. I have not seen this nation thinking in terms of production. I have only seen this nation thinking in terms of taxation. What governments like Japan do is that they empower their people to create Toyota and Nissan and so on and so forth, so that government earns from the work of its people. I'm telling you, if we were to plant pine trees today, in 10 years, we would harvest them. And if we sold each for 10,000, we would have trillions of shillings. And we have land. Kenya, sasa mnaambiwa panda miti, panda miti, panda miti. We are not thinking, if I was president, we would turn Kenya into an orchard. Just plant fruit trees. So there's a lot of land. You just need to drive from here to Mombasa.
Right.
There's a lot of land. And that's just one direction.
Well, owned by individuals, sadly.
Yes. So if the Kenya was thinking in terms of running government as business, so that if I make you minister for education, for example, I'm supposed to see how much money is the education ministry bringing to the national government. Every year we have an education minister with a begging bowl from the national government saying our ministry needs money. A ministry like agriculture should be a ministry. If it is run, you know, you get somebody who is, for example, a CEO and tell them we're giving you a ministry. Run a ministry as business, so that they look at the agriculture, they say the Ministry of Agriculture will import fertilizer, it will be cheaper, they'll sell to farmers. So ministries are not supposed to be getting money from the national government. When we start thinking, because we lack leadership, ministries are supposed to be creating money and actually giving to the national government. Counties are not supposed to be begging for money. I hate the kind of leadership I see in this nation. Counties are supposed to be creating money. Murang'a County is a rich county.
It's a rich country, yeah.
They have so many.
Our resources are curses anyway.
Yes. If you look at a county like Kiambu, where we have Githunguri, 60% of Kenya's milk comes from that small place called Githunguri. Yeah. And when funny MCAs leave Embu and go to Rwanda to benchmark on dairy farming, they are told, by the way, we bought our heifers from Githunguri. So they come back to Githunguri. If we take dairy farming seriously, so all I'm trying to say is on the teacher's salary issue, because I have mixed so many things, what we lacked is a government that could not see far. Because if the government had seen far, they would have found ways to bring down the cost of living for Kenyans, so that you don't even need a salary hike. Everybody's asking for a salary hike because prices of things are going high. Yeah. If the government had done the reverse and brought down the cost of living, so that if unga was 100, now it's at 75, someone who was earning 12,000 will not need a salary increase. You know, they're building houses, the Big Four agenda. If I was government, the first priority for these houses would have been civil servants. Right. Then civil servants will not come and say, my rent is high, give me a pay hike. Because we've given them affordable housing. But what are we doing? We're trying to build affordable housing zenye zitachukuliwa na mabepari. And those mabeparis will become landlords again.
They'll rent it out. That's pretty much unfortunate. We always say our cars is our big cars, you know, as Africa is basically our resources. The black gold oil is just causing us trouble left, right, and center. Then you ask yourself, what was the essence of even, you know, us being endowed with so much resources? So coming still back to the question of course, the standoffs that we see today. What is the role of the court in addressing some of these issues? It's okay, ultimately almost every you know, issue will go to the court, and we probably say that we burden the court so much so on issues that we probably address, you know, at that level before having to see it escalate to the courts. And numerous times we've seen union leaders being arrested because they've not dealt with this issue. Maybe they've gone against what the court ordered and all that. So where does it come in, and how best has it played in terms of addressing some of these differences that we witness today?
The role of the court is more of arbitration, especially in labor-related laws situation. So they should arbitrate or just be a mediator. But the moment a court is given facts, you know, the good thing about the court is that it listens. Yeah. You give them the facts, as the person, the two parties, party A and B, party A comes with the facts, they are read, they are interrogated, then the other party B comes with the facts, and then at the end of the day, when the judge does a ruling or just the ruling, he will give a judgment based on the facts. So anybody going to the court, whether it is TSC or NAT, make sure your facts are right. Because you will again blame the courts that they are bad, because they are just doing their work based on what is on the table. Yeah.
Okay, NAT and of course TSC, remember right now as we speak, 13 billion of course raises what they were targeting. More so of course NAT was targeting, as contrary to what TSC has done. And instead teachers have been demoted, instead teachers' salaries have been slashed, and instead of course nothing has been working. So there's that demotion and everything, so which is what NAT sort of feels like it's not right and it's not fair. Maybe it's time that they go for, of course, a strike. If at all TSC has done something, then maybe it's just to do a very minute sort of a raise. And they say that this is based on the fact that they want to recover all the benefits and, of course, ensure that they reverse all the processes that they did upon, of course, the CBA agreement that was there. And TSC boss Nancy Macharia says it will lead to a reversal of everything. So every other thing that was incorporated in the CBA, because we know very well that CBA is not just about the salaries, there are a lot of things, the well-being and all these things that have been incorporated. So that means the people who are under the umbrella of NAT have, of course, a bit of fire to go through. So we wait to see what will play out as to this standoff, and definitely how the role or how the courts will come in confidently to arbitrate this. Lastly, we have only 2 minutes. Generally looking at the education sector, it's what is making headlines. Of course, you look at the Daily Nation, lack of clarity masks grade 3 national assessment. That is on the transitioning of the CB. Of course, the competence-based curriculum. And the head teachers say registration has been hampered by technological hiccups, while others say they do not know how to prepare their pupils for crucial tests. Lastly, mystery of missing 5 million primary schools. According to government data, the number of pupils is 10 million, but only 5.2 million have been captured in electronic registration systems. So generally, I always ask this question every other time that we're talking about education. Rate the performance of Magoha so far, when you look at all these things, in about a minute or 30 seconds, I'd say.
For Magoha, I'll still give him a benefit of doubt because he's a newcomer.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't expect him to come and then voila, he touches and it becomes gold. I think it's a learning situation where there are a lot of complexities in the environment. But he needs to pull up his socks and make sure that as he deals, you need to have make sure that the PSS you have, PS for primary education, Belio, technical TVETs, are working, the universities, all that. They are all working in their respective areas so that we don't overload. What is in the public domain is only primary and NAT. We are not talking about the TVETs, we're not talking about the universities, we're not talking about the post-skill education. Yeah. So I encourage him to be a well-rounded CS and make sure we get the value as taxpayers for our money.
Okay, well, a newcomer, is he really a newcomer? Probably Matiang'i was more of a newcomer than Magoha because he's been within the education sector, done well, of course, in Nairobi campus and a couple of other regions, or I mean a couple of other sectors, of course, to do with education. At some point in time, people argue that maybe he's the man behind the success of Matiang'i. Then why is it that now that he's on board, things seem not to be moving as expected? Or we expected too much, or we bestowed so much hope on him?
I'll tell you this quite quickly. The average age of the people running the Ministry of Education is above 50. If you took all of them combined, including the Socions and all the others in TSC and NAT, their average ages is above 50. Okay. The average ages of those people who are in institutions of learning is below 20, if you were to take all of them combined and do it. Right. They are teaching us, okay, they are running an education ministry in the 21st century, where young people are very different from young people during their time. That's why an exam paper will be flown in a helicopter from here to Turkana, yet we have other ways of doing it. That's why we have policemen manning a container to man an examination with AK-47 rifles, because the average age of people running the Ministry of Education in this country is way over 50. Wow. If my generation was doing that, you would not have a GSU officer manning a container overnight because it has examinations.
Oh, really?
So I can tell you for free, our ministry was doomed to fail from the minute they chose not to have young people making critical decisions in that ministry. There are many ways to have done it. I know we don't have time, but if I was sitting here, it is possible to have an examination printed in Turkana in real time. Okay. So that morning, the people who are running the exams sit here and decide we are going to do paper number 3 and not paper number 4. You need to have 5. And then a printer prints in Turkana, is given to the students, they do it, and then, but when, I mean, you've done TOEFL, you've done so many international exams that you finish and you have your mark and you go home knowing what you're doing. True. So as long as the average age of people running the education ministry is 50 plus, we are messed and we are doomed. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving us old people to run a ministry that is primarily in charge of young people.
All right.
They should give us young people. I agree with that.
Okay, well, so we need to tap on technology and basically, of course, the capability of the youths that we have on board. Speaking of which, there's that debate of having this going all to 65, like teachers are supposed to teach up until the age of 65 as the retirement age. It's pretty much, a debate that is still ongoing. And so much so in the education sector. Of course, we cannot be able to expound all that right now because time is not on our side. I must say thank you so much, Dr. Moitalel and Nahashon. It was great having you. And lastly, of course, Lawyer Ben Kinothia. It was equally great having you and the great insights that we've picked. We can only hope that indeed the necessary stakeholders pick up some of the things that we discuss here, implement them and see whether we can get the change that we're all looking forward in all sectors so that we can all make a better country. Thank you so much. My name is Linda Lela. And to the people who've been watching us all through, we say asante sana. Thank you so much, John, for always constantly, following up in the debates and most importantly, contributing. And for those of you who've sent messages, thank you equally. We might not be able to go through them now because of time. We say asante. See you again tomorrow. Bye.